the nuclear is currently, I would say, the backbone of our energy system because it's producing more than 30%. It's reliable energy, it's sustainable, and brings a lot of energy security to the country.
The gravity of the time is such that every new avenue of peace, no matter how dimly discernible, should be explored. Never before in history has so much hope for so many people been gathered together in a single organization. You will provide a great share of the wisdom, of the courage, and the faith which can bring to this world lasting peace for all nations and happiness and well-being for all men.
Anton Simeonov, how are you?
Hey, Bret, I'm fine.
Welcome to Titans of Nuclear. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and you're calling it from Bulgaria, huh?
Yep, Sofia, Bulgaria.
Would love to, listen, let's get started. I'd love to hear about your background, how you got into the nuclear space, and let's just dive right in.
All right. So I graduated from university with master's degree in economics. And after I graduated, I started to work on financial consulting deals. And after a while, I decided to change. So I got into the energy business and more specifically into nuclear.
Well, okay, let's take a look at Bulgaria as a whole. What are the different energy options out there, and where does nuclear fit in right now? Or did it even fit in at that time, I should say, as well?
Actually, we have a very balanced system right now. The nuclear energy in Bulgaria is producing around 34% of the output.
That's pretty good.
And the rest is thermal power plants, renewables, and of course hydro. And so we have one nuclear power plant. We have 2 units operating, and they're VVR technology, PWRs. Each of the units is 1,000 megawatts.
When were they built?
Sorry?
When were they originally built?
In the 70s, like most of the stations in the world.
Yeah.
When was the bloom of nuclear, actually. And right now, actually, we have prolonged the useful life of the 2 units with 30 more years. So that's pretty good news, yeah.
And so how did you decide to enter into the sector? What was it that drew you in?
Well, actually, it was pretty, how to say, I didn't expect anything. I didn't do much research. Just I get the opportunity and decided to go in. And it was very interesting, and it's still very interesting, especially nuclear. When I first get in touch with nuclear, I was really amazed because I thought it's something so interesting and complex, and I still do. I mean, it's really interesting. It's great technology, and it's.
And so what were your roles? Did you serve as a consultant? Did you jump right into a power company? How did you play a role?
Yeah, I jumped right into a power company. The company I work for, it's the largest energy company in Bulgaria and actually in the area as well. And it's a holding company. We own a lot of different power plants, like thermal power plant, nuclear power plant. We own most of the hydro power plants in the country. And actually, our company is into the gas business as well.
And when you first got in, how has your role changed? What were you doing all the way back then, and how has it progressed over the last 10 years?
Well, it was progressively growing, like I was growing, and initially I started from the very bottom, and it was very interesting. It's been 10 years since I started my work there. It was quite an interesting time. I started actually first. My first project was a gas project. So
Mm.
yeah, and but not long after that, I started to work on a nuclear project, and since then, I started to grow, and and now I'm head of power project, managing different projects in the company, and yeah, it's really interesting
And
job.
what types of analysis do you do? Is it mostly economic analysis to see how future projects might pay off over time and how to structure the financing? What exactly is your specialty?
Yeah, regarding nuclear, it's the new build project. It's the commercial, financial part of the project, and of course, many different projects related to nuclear, like prolonging the lifetime, and many other small scale projects related to nuclear. But all in all, I'm doing the commercial and the financial stuff, and also trying to manage the whole process and structuring the project. So
Is Bulgaria looking to build new generating assets in the nuclear space?
yes, currently there is an ongoing project. It's ongoing for a lot of time, unfortunately, like in many other places.
What is the main thing that holds back projects? Is it just that you need to get enough people on board? Is it the money aspect? Is it not enough vendors competing? What is it that
Well,
slows things down?
mainly it's the financing and the money, because actually, unfortunately, it's such projects are really capital intensive, and it's really hard to do such large scale projects without having a lot of cash. So
Yeah.
this is the main obstacle. This is the main obstacle. And after that, of course, there are a lot of other issues with all these new build projects, which is unfortunately backholder of all this progress of new nuclear. And these are very complex projects. These are very commercially complex projects, requiring a lot of investments. They have high risk profile, and it's hard for any utility to nowadays to do nuclear.
And what about the technical talent in Bulgaria? Do you guys have your own homegrown engineering firms that can manage projects and oversee construction, or is it mostly outside engineering that would be required as well?
We have human resource potential still. We still have, but not in the whole scope of doing a new project, because for example, we don't have the construction capacity, and actually what I see elsewhere is most of the countries, they have the same problem, because since the nuclear bloom in the 70s, after that many companies stopped to work on new build, especially construction companies, and now it's really hard for them to manage all this process, because it's a long way to do a nuclear power plant. It's a phased work, it's very complex, and it's unfortunately, we do not have our home potential on that, so we won't be able to do it by ourselves only. But I mean, it's like elsewhere.
Now, why, maybe this is even beyond Bulgaria, but just your personal opinion, why don't utilities consider developing smaller nuclear projects like we did back in the 70s when they were they weren't 1,000 megawatts. They were, or even in the US in the 60s, they were like 500 megawatts. And if you look at the sites, they were physically much smaller. Why not just do something like that?
In my opinion, it's pretty much economics, because currently these, for example, small modular reactors and they're not much cheaper than the large reactors, and the output is much smaller. So if you have a market for the energy, why not to build the regular one, right?
You're right. But you could imagine it being a way to like get an industry kickstarted, get an industry rolling. Like you build a few of the small ones, maybe the economics are about as competitive or not quite as competitive as the large ones. But now you've got your construction guys going, you've got your suppliers working, and then all of a sudden, then you can start building bigger and bigger because the foundation is in place. Do people talk about that?
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. But it's the. I hope actually that the nuclear industry will really go forward with all other energy industries. I hope really that all that development will be much faster, and we can enjoy more of nuclear energy and new technologies pretty soon that are compatible to different other energy technologies, because unfortunately we see that nowadays we have a standardized projects for renewables, for thermal power plants that are going very fast, that are going easy, and at the same time, we have nuclear, which is very complex, which requires a lot of complex licensing and regulatory framework, and it's stopping a lot.
Yeah. What about some of the SMRs? You'd mentioned that. Did any of the like New Scales or GE, did any of them come to you with their projects and say, "Hey, could we build one in Bulgaria?"
Sure, we meet regularly with a lot of vendors and technology providers. We are in constant in touch with them, but I think that currently in Bulgaria, because how the way the system is built, it's the SMR, for example, is not being viewed as an option, because, as I said, it's like. The base load now produced from nuclear is 33%, and the output is divided equally between the three main producing technologies. So it's pretty much balanced.
Yeah. Would Bulgaria ever consider deploying a first of a kind if the economics were compelling enough?
The economics weren't compelling enough. We've tried a few years ago to explore the options for first of a kind technology, AP1000, but didn't work out for now. I mean, we're constantly reviewing and analyzing, but as I said, it's very complex. It's very complex, unfortunately, and the economics are the main issue.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's the same everywhere.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. Yeah. So tell me, what are the targets that new nuclear has to hit in order to be competitive with other power generating sources? Because, like you said, even though you have a balance grid, that's fine. So you don't have a desperate need for more nuclear. But thermo generating sources are dirty and polluting, so you kind of want to curtail them if compelling. If you've got another economically competitive option, so like, what would be the price point that it would have to meet in order to be compelling?
Well, I think that all the stakeholders that are involved in the industry, they have to do a lot of efforts to try to lower the cost, simplify the design in order to be easier for the regulators and for the authorities. On the other hand, nuclear need much more support from the authorities itself, and we see a lot of support and incentives for other technologies, right? Like renewables. So it's not competitive in this way, because when you support one source and you don't support other, it's not competitive at all. So we need to have more support from the institutions on the strategy, at least on the strategy, because we have, for example, in the European Union, we have this thing that every country, they can choose their own production and their own technology. For example, if we want to build 3 nuclear power stations, our neighbors want to build 4 nuclear power stations. There won't be balance, because you see Germany, they decided to stop using nuclear. On the other hand, they decided to make a lot of renewables. So because of that, there are months in the year that we have a lot of energy from renewables in Germany, that makes the price of energy goes down, really, and it makes all new projects not so competitive in such light. So what I wanted to say is that we need institutional support and maybe special legislation for nuclear and different incentives on the EU level, because mostly related to integrated strategy for the output.
And what would be a good price point for nuclear to produce at, to compete on its own merits? Let's say without subsidy. What's $1 per megawatt hour that you'd like to see nuclear at?
It's I wouldn't try to guess right now, because I don't know if you have seen the markets here in Europe. They're very, very low last year, and for example now it's the markets are really volatile. You see the situation with the coronavirus. You see the production from renewables that are being supported. So if one producer from renewable energy gets their money, for sure they're selling on zero. So the price on markets it's crazy. And right now, for example, it's like 25, 30, 22 euros per megawatt. So it's
But that's just an instantaneous moment in time. Like, what would be like the average over the last 5 years, let's say, of what the power?
Well, it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be not more than $60-$70 per megawatt.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because the old power plants that they built, that's it's cheaper than that. We used to do this 50 years ago when we built them. I guess when it was more streamlined, less regulatory burden, less complicated construction, they were easily able to make those numbers. And so to me, it always feels like we should just go back to the way we used to do things, and we'd have the cheapest, cleanest power mankind has ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that from the 70s up until now, all that stopped, and suddenly now a lot of countries, they want to build new build, and but all that what you mentioned is missing. We have regulators in many countries that are lacking capacity. We have human resources insufficient. And we have to do something. I mean, all people who are involved with nuclear, we have to do something on that for sure to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
What are some other things about the Bulgarian economy that you can tell me? Just for our listeners out there who are unfamiliar, what else do you guys produce technology-wise or industry-wise? What does it look like?
Well, the economy is actually doing pretty well right now in the last few years. We have a very good budget deficit in the country. We are one of the best in the European Union. The economy is growing. Even now, we expect some growth, even with the COVID-19
Wow.
situation.
And which sectors account for that growth?
Well, it's mainly industry. Mainly industry is we have a lot of companies related to automotive industry. Yeah, and it's with the economic point of view, the country is doing okay right now. Actually, it's pretty satisfying. But in terms of energy, for example, we are net exporter of energy for the last, I don't know, maybe 30 years. Yep. And we want to keep it so. We want to keep developing our system. We want to keep working on that. We want to keep nuclear. It's essential part for us, for our country. Actually, the nuclear is currently, I would say, the backbone of our energy system because it's producing more than 30%. It's reliable energy. It's sustainable and brings a lot of energy security to the country and to the region.
The whole region, yeah. And what are about some of the technical institutions? Does Sofia have any sort of scientific research centers related to nuclear?
Yeah,
as well?
we have Bulgarian Science Academy. They have a scientific institute there. We have our own regulator, nuclear regulator. That is actually, I mean, we have a very good capacity in that right now. And in terms of human resources, working in the power plant, we're doing still fine. But currently in the power plant, they're doing a lot of work with the universities to keep to keep the students' interest in nuclear. So I'm quite positive.
Amazing. Well, Anton, as we wrap up here, maybe you can give us just kind of your crystal ball look into the future. What do you see for the nuclear industry 10 years down the road?
Well, actually, I'm as positive. There are some negative thoughts in my head as well. But I mean, I hope that I said all interested parties in nuclear, they have to do a lot. They have to ease the processes. They have to make it easier to realize a project, and because I mean, let's see it in a licensing point of view. We have different regulators all around the world. We have different requirements in different countries. For example, some countries, they need the generic design approval. Other countries, they want a fully reviewed technical project with the smallest detail, to license the project. And it's difficult for technology providers. It's difficult for utilities, and it's different, actually. That makes it different everywhere in the world almost, because all the vendors, they need to go into a specific country. They need to Mm, they need to explore all the requirements, and when they're different, it makes it very difficult for them, and it makes it expensive.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is that we need to simplify the design. We need to make it more easier to license, and of course we need more institutional support. That is what has to be done, and to be for nuclear to be more competitive, because you see the renewables. You see that for example, the battery manufacturing industry is developing, and what I expect actually is that renewables with going together with batteries, it will be the greatest rival of the nuclear. I mean, it's but that won't happen soon. So if everything goes smooth with the nuclear development, I expect that still nuclear will keep its positions, at least, because it's sustainable. It's sustainable and brings energy security, and in the long term, it's I think it might be profitable.
Well, Anton, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
Yep. Thank you, Bret.
Okay.
And initiate at least a new approach to the many difficult problems that must be solved in both private and public conversation if the world is to shake off the inertia imposed by fear and is to make positive progress toward peace.